Hey real estate agents, welcome to Making a Smarter Agent, your program to find out all the tips and trends as told by the great ones in real estate. What's a great one? Someone that's able to make money and still keep their head on straight. Let's face it, this is a tough business. We interview tough people who seem to make it look easy.
I want to welcome Peter Hernandez to my podcast. Peter, welcome to Making a Smarter Agent.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast. You've done an amazing job with this podcast.
Well, I'm delighted to have you. I know last week we had Ivan Estrada, and the week before that we had Jennifer Leahy, and there's all kinds of others, but not the least of which I've been really looking forward to talking with you and finding out about you and what makes you tick. So let's kick it off. How long have you been in the business, and when did you get started? What was it like when you got started?
Well, it was interesting. I was 18 when I got my license, and I was going to UCLA at the time. I was getting my Bachelor of Arts in Economics, and my dad said, "Hey, I'm getting tired of footing the bill. Get in here and work." So I went and got my license. He had a brokerage. He actually opened up his brokerage in 1964 in Marina del Rey. It was right when they were dredging the marina, and they were actually going to make all the Venice canals connect, and it was all going to go out through the marina, and it was going to go out into the ocean. Never evolved that far, but it did obviously become some pretty amazing real estate. So I got my license, and in there I was 18, so I've been licensed, I guess almost 49 years now, and
wow.
it was one of those things where I was pre-law. I was going to go to law school, and I went in on my first weekend to go to work, and I made a sale. So unfortunately, I think it aborted my law career.
So, fortunately or unfortunately, that's terrific. So you got into it, and it was your dad's business, you're saying, or he was the manager of the office, or I didn't hear
No,
that.
it was my dad's business, and he was partners with my brother Michael, and they had like the number one brokerage at the time down there. It was during the time of small independence, and they probably had about 25, 30 agents, but they were all the best agents, and they just dominated the market. And it was that style of brokerage where you do a little bit of property management, you sell, you represent some clients, and then you buy a whole boatload of real estate. And my brother and dad were buying properties right and left, like stuff on the oceanfront for $27,000, $30,000 back then. And it was quite a time. So it was sort of a very beginnings, I think, of that really cool style of brokerage.
So, we'll back up just a second. You're really in the business. You saw your dad and your brother. You got into it immediately, or at least at the ripe old age of 18. Made a sale. Decided not to be a lawyer. It was at that point that you said, "Okay, I want to own a business, or I want to be a salesman." And I want to make the distinction because I think there's a lot of people in this business that really look at themselves as working for a business as opposed to working on a business.
Right. Well, I was probably neither of those. I was, to be honest, I was a little bit of the prodigal son. So I would make a sale and then disappear for 6 months and come back broke and beg for my job back, kind of a thing. Even though I did not pursue being a lawyer, in all honesty, Ed, I didn't want to be a realtor either. It was just something that was very natural for me. It's just something that I fell into, and that I just seemed to have success at. So in the very beginning, no, I was pretty typical. I thought of myself as an agent. I was very transactionally minded. It was all about, where am I going to find my next transaction? I was definitely more working in the business than on the business. And it's an interesting story because I spent 10 years pretty mediocre. Even though I made had that first sale on the first weekend, I was a pretty mediocre agent, to be quite honest, for 10 years. And my bills were stacking, and it was about that time that my dad was starting to wind down the business. And for various family circumstances, it wasn't anything I was going to be able to take over. So I moved to next door to a large independent called John Douglas Company, which was like the beginning of the big independents when they were coming in. There was, John Douglas and Fred Sands, and, it was probably the time, Douglas Elliman was, coming on the market strong. And it was just that time of era. It was before the franchises. And so I joined,
What year was this about?
I think I joined them in like the early 80s. And so I jumped over to John Douglas, and I'll never forget my brother. I was talking to my brother about it, and he says, Peter, he says, it's now or never. You got to really get cranking. So he said, get in early, be first in, be last out, and don't hang around the water cooler. Be nice to agents, but they're not going to buy or sell from you. Get out there and work. And so I went in there and I just did exactly that. I got in first, left last. I always probably booked more hours in the office than anybody. And then I had my first big year, and I went to my accountant and I said, I had this big year. What's up? And he says, God, you owe I forget what the number was, a bunch of taxes. And I said, well, I don't have it. He says, oh boy. He says, then let's incorporate you, and we'll move your tax year, from calendar to fiscal, and it'll give you some time to earn your taxes. So we got it. They incorporated me, and I'll never forget this. I was walking out the door, and I'm looking at my little box of corporation papers and my official stamp and the wax and all that stuff that goes with it. And I'm looking down at it, and I read, Peter Hernandez Inc. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not an agent, I'm a business. And I had that moment of clarity that you try to effect in everybody that I work with and coach, where you think about scaling, you think about a pipeline, you think about building something bigger than yourself, and you go beyond this, what I call transactional mentality, into where you're really, building a sustainable business. And that just clicked at that moment because of that box, that box of incorporation papers. It just somehow had a huge effect on me.
Yeah, no, when you see it in black and white, sometimes it is really big. Fast forward a little bit. I know you had a company named Teles. I think the full name was Teles, or what was
it? Was Teles Properties.
Teles, and this was your business?
Yes, it was. I was the founder of it.
Yeah. You were the founder. And how did you come to be part of Douglas Elliman? I know you've existed, and I've seen you, and you built this huge social media personality, and everyone knows you, but I'm really not sure about how it came to be. How did you come to be with Elliman?
Well, it was interesting. So let me just continue a little bit about my career, and then it'll evolve into how Teles was formed, and then we can talk about how Douglas Elliman bought Teles. It's interesting, Ed, how you have goals and dreams, and I always had goals and dreams at the back of my mind that, I'd be a top agent, which I actually accomplished, that, maybe I would run a company for somebody, which, something that I've accomplished, and, maybe I'd have my own company, something that I've accomplished. And so those were ideas in the back of my head, and I always held them close to my heart, but I never really wrote those three things down. And I've always been a very goal-oriented business plan type person. So, I rose in the ranks of an agent, and then one year I just said, God, I'm not sure I want to sell more than 40 properties a year. That's just a lot of work. So I went to John Douglas and I said, hey, Jack, I said, do you mind if we discuss? I'd really like to talk about, becoming president of your company and running it for you. And he looked at me and kind of chuckled and said, well, maybe you ought to be a manager of an office first. And so that was my beginnings. So he made me manager of the office I was in, and I I grew that. And then when he sold to Coldwell Banker, he gave me 2 offices in Beverly Hills that I just exploded through. In Santa Monica, that I just exploded through the roof. In fact, they were actually more profitable than our Beverly Hills office at the time. So it was really a really fun thing for me. And my idea was, maybe I can, do through other people what I was doing through myself. And I wanted to learn to kind of be a leader and, a motivator and a business person rather than just, my own personal business as an agent. So that was really fun. And then when Coldwell Banker bought John Douglas, like a couple of years in, I got a call from Bob Becker. He said, hey, Peter, he said, I want you to meet with Mike Goodnight. And when I met with them, they said, we've never done this before, but we want to promote you from where you are all the way to president. And they were breaking up Coldwell Banker California into 3 regions. They were breaking it into a Northern Cal, LA, and Orange County, Northern Cal, I guess that's 4 regions, Northern Cal, LA, Orange County, and San Diego. And we'd love you to be president of our Orange County company. So I was like, I got to tell you, that was scary for some reason, but I did it because I'd never lived outside of LA. That was my power zone. I'd always, been on the beach from, Venice to Malibu. And growing up in Pacific Palisades was a big part of my life. So moving to Orange County was, first of all, very scary for me. And then becoming president of the company, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I called my wife and I go, honey, I think I'm coming home. I don't think I want this job. She says, Peter, why don't you just, go see what it's like before you decide that. And then, the rest becomes history. So I did that for 5 years and I grew it from 750 to 1,500 agents, and it was doing really, really well. And part of of that adventure was we acquired a company called Teles Properties, and it was an amazing company. And that kind of planted the seed that maybe I might want to, start a company at that point. So lo and behold, this guy, one of my good friends and coach came to me and said, hey, Peter, I'm looking for, this person, there's going to be this guy starting a company in Los Angeles and he wants to pick our brains. Do you want to go up there and talk to him? So the three of us went up and we met with this guy up in LA who was starting this company. And when we left, we're walking down the hallway and it was a very funny conversation because we all said, well, we're not interested in that company. But one of us asked the question, what would we do if us three started one? And that was the beginning, just like that. And then we had meetings at my house every night for about a year. And you draft the most amazing business plan, that you could possibly put together. I still have it to this day. It was just incredible, detailed. You do every analysis you can financially. You're trying to figure out, where the holes are in the market and what you can do to build a very, very successful business. And then, we're getting ready to launch Teles. And it was funny because when you're doing this, the interesting thing is everyone says they want to do it. And then when you get ready to do it, they all kind of get cold feet. It's a very funny experience. Sure. So one of the partners and I, we were talking on a Saturday morning and we just said to each other, why don't we just go hang a shingle? And if they want to join us, great. If they don't, we'll do it on our own. And so as soon as we committed, then, the other partners jumped in. And off we were to the races, and we went out and raised a few bucks, opened up an office, and grew it too.
Did you follow the plan? Did you follow the plan?
That's a great question. And you do. I think you follow the. I'll be honest with you. We followed the intent and the cultural aspects and the. What's the word I want to use? Not the ethos, but maybe the underlying value proposition of what we were doing. But honest to God, it's like as soon as you open the doors, it's like everything moves, everything changes. You're at war and you're calling audibles. And it goes to that. And then you can go back to the plan for your inspiration. But I would have to say that a lot of our original plan went out the window.
Sure. Well, Mike Tyson famously said, everyone has a plan until you're punched in the head.
That's exactly right.
And I think it's actually a very intelligent statement if you really stop and think about it. So bringing it forward, just we have I've got so many questions that I want to get to here. You at that point founded, around what year was that you were saying before?
That was in 2007, November. We launched. We get to the first quarter of 2008, and we're in the Great Recession, and I'm looking up at the TV and I'm watching people raid banks and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, are we ever going to sell another house? And that actually was a good thing because that taught us the disciplines of how to run a business and how to be, fiscally responsible. So going through those recessionary times gave us two edges. One is we were a growth company. We were building, not most companies at that point were scaling back. So we were a nice contrast to that. And then the other part was, we had to be smart. Because you can blow through money quickly when you're in a recessionary market.
Sure, no, you could blow through money quickly in any market. So it was 2007, and when were you approached by Douglas Elliman, or did you approach them?
Well, this was the sale closed in August of 2017. So we've been 2 years with Douglas Elliman now, and it's been an amazing adventure. Great partnership, great company, and really happy about that move. But it was 2 years ago, prior to that, I guess would have been 2015. Everybody was talking to everybody. So, whether it was all the small independents, the big companies, the Coldwell Bankers, the Berkshires, everybody was like trying to, merge or acquire or put these things together. in most cases, Ed, we were just either we didn't like the culture of the firm, or we, didn't think our agents would roll with it or like it, or why are we doing it? And so many of the companies you talk to were losing money, and we were making money at Teles. And so, we were thinking to ourselves, why would we team up with this? They have great agents, they have a great, market share, but they're losing like so much money. I mean, why would we let them bring us down? And so it was right at that moment, Ed, we decided to go on our own. We were at 22 offices. We had 650 some odd agents. We were selling a boatload of real estate. We thought, you know what, let's just go it alone. We can continue as we are, or maybe we'll go get some joint venture money, or maybe we'll, see what happens in the future. But let's just keep building this thing because it's working. And it was at that point that, Douglas Elliman came along, and it was the first time we went, wow, this could be really good. We should really think about this. And it was just because of the Elliman brand. It was because, of the sophistication of the firm. It was because that, they had the great international, it just had the luxury vibe and feel and stuff that we thought would be maybe the greatest place we could put our agents at the end of the day. And so, all the partners were like, yes. And it was funny because I was very, very, I actually asked a few agents, I would go out in the marketplace and say, if you were to go anywhere, where would you go? And it was always Douglas Elliman. And so it was like they answered the question for me in a way. And we thought it was, becoming a billionaire's game, no doubt about it, that, small brokerages to compete are just going to be at a huge disadvantage. And so we knew that we couldn't remain mid-sized. We knew we had to grow or possibly even shrink, right? We might have to change our plan. But you can't, it's really difficult, I think, for the mid-independents to compete. It's very tough. Like if you're a small brokerage, like let's just say you have maybe a few agents, you're doing property management, covers the bills, you're making sales, and you're buying and selling for yourself. You don't compete with anybody in that model. You're going to sustain and you're going to be fine. But when you're, mid-size and you're competing for agents and you're really out in the marketplace competing for listings, having that big brand and the power of the big brand behind you makes a huge difference, tremendous difference. And you don't have to explain who you are. You don't have to explain what you do. I mean, it's almost like you hand a business card out and it's done. So it was funny. And we met, with Howard, and, basically we talked for a few hours, and it was a handshake and a done deal. And it was just beautiful.
And at that time, how many agents did you have, and how many do you have today?
Well, we had 650, and I think we're approaching 800 now. So 150 more agents since the acquisition.
So for anyone that might be listening, as you know, this is a podcast for real estate agents, and we have listeners all over the country, hopefully at some point all over the world. When they're trying to grow out their business, be it the one-man band or the small group, what advice would you give them as far as, the stuff that you learned from the growing pains along the way? What's the one thing, is there some type of essence that you give? I know one thing is always, people always try and tie it down to one tiny thing, but let's do whatever you can. What is something what advice would you give someone who's trying to form a group and grow it out today that they might not be considering?
Well, I mean, it's, we're in business planning quarter right now. I mean, every agent on this call should be thinking about their business plan, and you should be thinking about it right now, what you want to accomplish and do in 2020. But I think that what's lacking often in business planning is the dream in the beginning. You need to have a big dream, to quote Martin Luther King. You need to be imagining that you've built this something, whatever it is that you want to build and grow. All right. Once you have that dream, and then you have to kind of, you have to add into that, what does your family look like? Where do you live? Where do you, what do you, what kind of health are you in at that point? You have to look at the whole picture, not only your business, but yourself personally, family, everything. And then it's almost like a vision board, but it's even more than that. I'd say it's even a step beyond the vision board, where you're envisioning this end product that you're going to work from. And then if you have that in place and it's cemented in something you're very, very passionate about, you can build backwards. You can engineer backwards what you need to do to get there and how long it's going to take you. But I think people will say, like, in their business plan, okay, I'm going to make 10 calls a day. I'm going to do open houses once a week. And they lay out the tactical plan, but it's not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't have the vision, the dream. And you really, I think, to be big, I mean, when I look at the big agents in our company or in the world, they think so big. They think so big. Yeah. I mean, top agents are making, $24 million a year. I mean, that's $2 million a year a month.
Sure.
And other agents are thinking about, how do I make my next sale? So the difference in thinking between those two things is so wide and so far. And and when I talk to agents, Ed, like when I talk to you, you're a great example. I mean, you're a big thinker, and that's what I think is the big deal. I think that's number one.
Okay, and so great. That's step one for starting the group. One thing that I've discovered, since you're now my fourth guest on this podcast, that everyone seems to have a ritual. They have some type of, they wake up earlier than everyone else. I mean, and I'm telling all the agents who are listening to this, they don't watch much television, if any at all. They wake up super early. They're athletic. Oftentimes they're religious or spiritual. Are there any other characteristics that you're seeing from the top producers? I mean, you've seen the winners and the losers. We've known that already. Is there any, underlying characteristic among the people who consistently win that you can share with us?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, one of the rituals is getting up early. I mean, I get up 4:45 every day. I go to my same chair. I do my spiritual readings. I do affirmations. I meditate. You know what I mean? I plan out my day. I return all my emails. I might read a few things, and then I'm at CrossFit by 6 a.m. So now I've mentally, physically, and spiritually put myself in position to have a great day. So it's almost by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I've accomplished more than most people will by 12 o'clock that day. So I've got like a 4-hour head start on everyone. And I go to bed somewhere around 10. You know what I mean? Like sometimes if I'm really exhausted, I'll climb in at 9. But I think that that being to bed early to rise is not BS. That is the formula for success. And you feel better, you're healthier, you're sharp. I mean, I get it. Some people are nocturnal, and for those people, I think you should continue along that way. If you're productive at 11 o'clock at night, and that's when you turn on, to force yourself into my plan, I think would be hard, really hard. In fact, I was not a 4:45 guy. I mean, I was an 8 o'clock guy that I'd wake up, and I had to work it back. Because I wanted that. Because I heard all the CEOs, all the great musicians, all the great people, not musicians necessarily, but some musicians, and almost every CEO, were starting their days very early. And there's something really neat about it. When I'm up at 4:45 and everyone's still sleeping, there is a energy you can tap into that you can't tap into at other times. Because I believe that no one else is drawing on it at that time. So it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, look, Victor Curry from one of your offices is on my Wednesday morning think tank, which is 6 a.m. I'm actually quite surprised how many Californians I get, given that we're operating on East Coast time. That at 6 a.m. I have him. I've got Deneen Kearns. I sometimes have Connie Blankenship. I've had a whole bunch of folks from your way, and they've been terrific. I mean, they really do share some great stuff. I want to ask you this because, I've read it, I quote it. When I look at you, I think it. What does keep it core actually mean to you? And is it something, did you coin that phrase?
Well, I think one of the things that comes with, the experience I've had, you just can't take away the fact that as an agent, as a manager, as a president, as an owner, seeing the business from so many angles, being in the business as long as I've had, being involved in as many transactions as I've had over the years, there's an experience and wisdom and learning that comes with that. whether you're smart or not. You're gonna pick up some things. And so, when I look out in the world today, everyone's looking for a hook, an angle, the 5 hacks, the 3 tricks, everybody's, and then if you look at those things, then you go one step further and you look and say, well, who is saying this? And you realize they're, 22 years old, they haven't accomplished anything in their life, and they're just, and they're these and they're influencers of millions of people. I think what keep it core means to me, what are the basics? What are the things that really, really, really work? Like for me, I think like online leads are really good if you're good at them and you incubate them and you work them from start to finish. But honestly, Ed, they're the coldest leads you can get. They're when people first go on their computers looking for property. So that would not be a core element for me. Doing an open house would be core, because open houses, when people are looking at open houses, are pretty serious, or sellers are coming by to look to see how the house compares to theirs. Having conversations face to face. I call it back to basics. And it's all of my millennial friends, all the people I know that, were a big part of this online lead experiment and a big part of the technological revolution that's been going on, are going back to basics. My millennial friends are saying, call me, I want to talk to you about it. We hear they all want, texting is for like the quick answers and quick communication, great stuff, great tool. But when they want to talk about buying a property, it's not by text as much as by, having a great conversation. The thing about the kids of today, they know what they don't know. And that is really important. So keep it core to me would be like, how do you become the best version of yourself? How does Ed incrementally every day become better than Ed was the day before? Physically, mentally, work, family, as a friend, spiritually, emotionally. How does Ed look at his life on a daily basis, and what is he doing daily to advance it? I think that's what makes life fun. So keep it core is like, I don't know. I guess keep it core is like, it's like getting to your core self, maybe getting into your roots. I don't know where I came up with that expression. It was like third year into Teles Properties, and it just became my moniker, and I don't even know why I did that. Now I walk around and people say to me, keep it core, and I go, God, that kind of sounds silly, but I guess I'll stick with it.
No, but you know what? It's your tag, and it works. I just saw a woman. I'm working out of the Palm Beach, Douglas Elliman Palm Beach office today, and there's a woman who said, yeah, I need to be somewhere in an hour and a half, and I'm kind of tired now, and I don't want to start anything because, I'm like, finish the sentence. You don't want to start anything because why? I said, what's the worst thing that could happen? You only get 20 minutes of calls in as opposed to the full hour. And, what is the worst thing to happen? And I'm pretty proud of myself because I encouraged her to get on the phone, and I think she got an extra meeting out of it. So it is incremental success. And I think you are such a positive force, a nice guy. I've never, one of the things that's so nice is everyone always smiles when they mention you. And I'm going for that kind of character on this podcast, because I once read a bumper sticker that said mean people suck, and they really do. So we might as well keep it friendly. Let me just ask like 2 other things, and then we need to move on. iBuying services. You were saying that people know what they don't know, and there's some people that just get involved in the technology. There's a lot of buyers out there that are saying, or a lot of futurists that are saying that we're somehow becoming somewhat obsolete. Do you agree with that at all? Is there anything that we should be doing to protect ourselves as agents?
I don't really believe that. I mean, here's what I do believe, that the business is going to be done by fewer and fewer agents. And I think that's because a little bit of the way we're set up. I mean, everyone charges the same rate, basically. So if everyone's basically charging the same rate, which is very, very unusual and isn't done in any other business. Lawyers don't do that, accountants don't do that, doctors don't do that. When you really look at service businesses, it's usually your rates based on your skill level. But our industry approaches it differently, and it's worked for years and years and years, and I don't suspect it to change. So if that's really what's going on, and I'm going to pay X percentage fee to an agent, then I'm going to really look carefully at who I'm hiring, because that's going to be the determining factor. Who's the most skilled, the most knowledgeable, the best track record? Who's the one that's going to get me from A to Z the best? And that's how I'm going to, choose an agent. So I think what's happening, and you're seeing this, is that fewer and fewer agents are doing more and more of the business because the clients have access to more information, so they know who those great agents are more easily than before. So that's one thing. I'll confess to having not studied the iBuyer thing probably as well as I should have, but here's my cursory interpretation of it. There used to be a company, and I think there still may be in LA, and they used to put these yellow posters up on the telephone poles around town, and it would say, "We buy ugly houses."
Sure.
And it was virtually
WeBuyUglyHouses.com. Yeah.
Yep, and it was virtually a people are trying to make wholesale purchases of people's properties that don't care and want to get rid of them quickly. I see iBuyers as the internet version of that. I see iBuyers as a company that wants to buy things for a discount. You know what I mean? And they're going to, do cursory appraisals, like Zillow type appraisals, and they'll buy them. And they'll probably say that property we should buy at 30% less than that, and they'll make an offer. And if someone wants to accept it, great. But I don't think that's the typical seller. I think the typical seller wants retail, and they want retail plus, and that's why they're going to top agents to try to achieve that.
Sure.
So I don't know if that would be my impression.
That's the answer is there's no real answer yet. The future hasn't happened. I do think back to a time when the president of the National Association of Realtors, I think it was 93, famously said, the internet is just a blip. It's not going to be any real, maybe 95, any real, it's not going to have a real place in the sale of real estate. Well, they could have been farther from the truth. But that said, I do believe that what the most interesting thing to me is the top people that I see are the least technology savvy people I've ever met. The people that are really making the big bucks in the business, they really have phenomenal relationships. That's a model that I've been trying to go after as an agent. So that's what we're hoping for.
Well, it's interesting. Peter, one of the top agents in this town. He's so big. I think he did $500 million in his first quarter. And this particular agent, doesn't advertise, barely has a website. But boy, does this agent have a database. And does this agent know all the top players in town? And this agent has an uncanny ability to connect dots. So he talks to you, discovers you're selling your home. He knows exactly who in his database will buy it. And he puts it together. And that's how he does all of his business. Now, that has very little to do with technology. And I'm not saying technology is not the greatest tool in the world, because I love technology. I'm an early adopter on everything that comes out. I find it fun. I like it. I like online marketing. I like everything about that. But at the end of the day, if I'm not talking to people, if I'm hiding behind technology, if I'm hiding behind text messages and emails, my business is not going to be as good as it could be.
This is true. It's a great assist, but it's not a replacement. And I think
I don't think so.
Really important for people.
Not yet.
That said, there's a couple things that I want to let everyone know about just prior to us ending today. One, I will be hosting for Douglas Elliman agents a cocktail party in New York City sometime in January. Elliman agents, please look for that invite. To my friends here in South Florida, on February 18th, I have rented the ballroom at St. Andrew's Country Club. I will have Howard Lauber speaking on a panel with Bruce Toll, CEO of Toll Brothers, and we're going to be discussing various real estate topics and how it's affecting our economy. If you are interested, please do reach out to me. My contact info is everywhere. And Peter, just the last word. Any other thoughts you'd like to give agents before we sign off? Anything else that I might not have asked that I could kind of edit in here?
Well, it's funny because I was just working with an agent a little earlier, and I would say, the two top traits of successful people. One is, their work ethic. I laugh at the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. If I did that, I'd be so broke. And I'm sure if I put a book out that said 90 hours a week, I'd still be broke. But it's like work ethic is I don't know an agent that's really successful that just doesn't have an incredible work ethic. So that's number one. Number two is, what I call bounce back ability. I mean, when you get gut punched, you can't stay down. Another Mike Tyson, you got to get up and start swinging again. And, agents that keep adding up all the deals they lost. And if I had sold that, I would have sold 100 million in real estate, and they just keep adding it up. That's not going to propel you forward. You got to forget it like water off a duck's back and keep moving forward. So I always give agents like 24 to 48 hours to remorse, and then you got to get going.
Yeah. No, listen, go into a quiet room, blame everyone, blame your mother, blame your father, blame all the things, the teacher that didn't give you the right thing. And then afterwards say, okay, I'm going to forget about it and move on. And I couldn't agree with, listen, my goal this year, I made it very public. The psychologists call it conversationally committing. I put it out on the internet that I'm going to close 50 deals this year. It looks like I'm going to close 22 this year. So,
wow.
One could say, well, you lost. Okay, maybe, perhaps you could look at it that way. To me, I think that's pretty good. I would have loved to have hit that 50. So my goal for 2020 is to do 50 because I never accomplished the goal this year. But had I not had the goal, it would have been less than this. And I think it's striving forward that matters.
100%. I rarely hit goals I set, but they're so big that what I'm hitting is good, right? So that's wonderful. What do they say? Shoot for the stars and you hit the moon or something like that. There's nothing wrong with it.
I ask the world for diamonds, and if you get a good pair of Reeboks, you're doing pretty well. Anyway, with that said, Peter, you are terrific. I hope that we can have you back at some point in the future. And I hope to see you. I don't know if you're going to be at the Elliman event in March in Connecticut, but I hope to see you there.
I definitely will.
And thank you for participating and for coming on Making a Smarter Agent. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ed. It was an honor and very much fun. Great talking with you.
Thank you for listening to Making a Smarter Agent. Do me a favor. If you liked Making a Smarter Agent, please go to Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast services you might be listening through and give me 5 stars. If you didn't like it that much, then don't even bother. You don't need to say anything. 5 stars is all that really works. I look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, connect with Rain Nation, that's RAIGNATION, on Facebook. It's part think tank, part group therapy for realtors, all coaching, and it's affordable. Please tune in again next week to listen to another exciting episode of Making a Smarter Agent.